Let's talk about the advanced editor in Power Query. So far we've added a lot of steps directly in the UI. For example, we've been renaming some column names, and we see that we have new steps here in the applied steps here on the right. We can open up the advanced editor and actually write some Power Query code, also called M-code, in order to perform more complex transformations that you may not be able to do directly in the UI. For example, if you take a look at our customer ID column, we have renamed this to be all lower cases. In case we wanted to change all of our columns at the same time to be capitalized in the correct way, we can do that directly with some advanced code in the advanced editor. So I'm actually going to add one more step here in order to change our order ID column to look like that, to show you that we're going to apply this change to all of our columns at the same time. We're going to open up the advanced editor, and we see all of our steps here in code form. For example, our first step is connecting to a SQL database. Then we have the next step, which is navigating to the database. And our third step is connecting to our sales order tables. We have all these steps and we've later applied. So the default syntax is that we start with the let, and then we have our steps, and then we return after an in statement, and then we return our final step here. So we see that all the returning are name column steps. If we were to change this to return our sales order step, we actually wouldn't have applied any of these changes after. So if we were to add a new step directly in the advanced editor, we would end the previous step with a comma and then add a step. So we can name our step. Let's call this capitalized column. And we can set that equal to some code. One thing before we get into the code is if we have a single word such as capitalized column without a space, we can just call it whatever we want. But if there's a space in the words, then we need to start with a hash and have a double quote surrounding the name. So keep in mind if you're going to name a step with a space involved. So from here, let's go ahead and write some code to capitalize all of our columns. So we can use a lot of the Power Query functions in order to achieve a lot of the results that we're looking for. So you might want to look up the in function reference in case you want to understand what you can do with this Power Query code. But we're going to use the table transform column names function directly with our advanced editor. We're going to provide it a source table and a function in order to do something to these columns. So we need to refer to the previous step. So we can refer to the renamed columns directly. So basically we're saying that a result from our last step and feed it into our new step. Then we can apply some sort of functions here in order to do something to those column names format. So if you want to say text.upper, so now we're transforming our columns from the previous steps to their uppercase representations. Then all we need to do in return our capitalized columns. Let's click done. And firstly, you'll note that it added a stuff here on the right capitalized columns, and all of our columns are now capital cases. We may not want them to look exactly like that, so we don't have an options. We can use text.proper in case we want to see the first character of each capitalized, so that looks a lot better. We now have our nice formatting directly and dynamically from our advanced editor code.